I have spent 7 years answering emergency calls. Thousands of voices crying, screaming, begging for help. I thought nothing could shake me anymore. I was wrong. That night, a familiar voice came through my headset. It was Lauren, my fiancée, the woman I was supposed to marry in 3 months. She was sobbing about a man who stopped breathing. She called him her lover, and she had no idea I was the one listening. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Drop a comment below. If you believe in karma and truth, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you have ever discovered a betrayal in the worst possible way, stay with me. Because what I did next changed everything. My name is Christian, and I've been a 911 dispatcher for 7 years. I work at the Central Emergency Call Center in the city, handling everything from car accidents to house fires to medical emergencies. The job requires absolute calm. You cannot panic. You cannot let emotions interfere. When someone is dying on the other end of the line, they need you to be their anchor. The call center is a large room filled with cubicles, computer screens glowing blue in the dim light, keyboards clicking constantly. We wear headsets that become part of us during our shifts. The sounds of other dispatchers talking blend into background noise. You learn to focus only on the voice in your ear. I have talked people through performing CPR on their loved ones. I have stayed on the line with a mother whose child was choking. I have heard the last words of people who did not survive. Each call leaves a mark, but you build walls. You compartmentalize. You tell yourself it is just a job. And for 7 years I believed I had mastered that. Lauren came into my life 4 years ago at a charity event hosted by St. Mary Hospital, where she worked as a nurse. She was standing by the dessert table laughing at something her colleague said. Her brown hair fell past her shoulders, and when she turned and our eyes met, I felt something I had never felt before. Her eyes were the kind of blue that made you forget what you were going to say. I walked over and introduced myself. We talked for 3 hours that night. She was warm, funny, passionate about her work. She told me stories about her patients, about the small victories that made nursing worthwhile. I told her about the calls that haunted me, and she listened without judgment. We started dating. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into weekends together. After 2 years, she moved into my apartment. After another 1.5 years, I decided she was the one. I proposed at the Italian restaurant where we had our first official date. I had the ring hidden in my jacket pocket for 2 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. When I got down on one knee, she covered her mouth with both hands. Tears streamed down her face. She said yes before I even finished asking. That was 8 months ago. We set a date 3 months from now. We booked the venue, hired a wedding planner, sent out save the dates. I pictured our future together. A small house in the suburbs. Maybe a dog first, then children. Growing old together, the whole dream. Looking back now, there were signs. I just refused to see them. About 6 months ago, Lauren started picking up more night shifts. She said the hospital was short-staffed and she needed the extra money. I believed her. I worked nights sometimes too, so I understood. Come on. She began placing her phone face down whenever she was home. She would step outside to take certain calls, claiming it was a friend going through a difficult time who needed privacy. I did not question it. Why would I? I trusted her completely. Once I picked up her phone to check the time, and she snatched it from my hand so quickly it startled me. She laughed it off, said she was just jumpy from a stressful day. I let it go. The truth was right in front of me, and I chose blindness. Love does that. It makes you want to believe the best in someone even when the evidence suggests otherwise. That Saturday night I was scheduled for the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift. Lauren said she also had a night shift at the hospital. We kissed goodbye at the door around 9:30. She smelled like vanilla, like she always did. She told me she loved me. I said it back. The first few hours of my shift were routine. A minor traffic accident on the interstate. A noise complaint that somehow got routed to 911. A teenager who accidentally cut his hand while cooking. Normal calls that I handled on autopilot. Around 2 a.m., the call came in. I pressed the button to accept it, my standard greeting ready on my lips. 911. What is your emergency? Hysterical crying filled my headset. A woman sobbing so hard she could barely form words. Please, please help me. My lover. He stopped breathing. Oh God, please, send someone. I started my protocol. I asked for the address. I asked about the victim. My voice was calm, steady, professional, and then I recognized the voice. My entire body went cold. It was Lauren. There was no mistaking it. I had heard that voice whisper good morning to me. I had heard it laugh at my terrible jokes. I had heard it say yes when I asked her to marry me. Now I was hearing it scream about another man. She gave me the address. The Marriott Hotel on Lexington Avenue. Room 47. Not the hospital where she was supposed to be working. I asked about the victim. Male, she said. Around 40 years old, not breathing, skin turning blue. I walked her through CPR. I kept my voice neutral, mechanical. Inside, I was falling apart, but training took over. I dispatched an ambulance. I stayed on the line. Derek, she screamed at one point. Please, Derek, wake up, please. Derek, I filed that name away. The paramedics arrived. The call ended. I removed my headset and stared at the screen in front of me. The world continued around me. Keyboards clicking. Colleagues talking. The hum of the air conditioning. But I heard none of it. All I heard was her voice over and over. My lover, my lover, my lover, and the sound of my future shattering into pieces. I still had 4 hours left in my shift. 4 hours of answering calls, helping strangers, pretending I was not dying inside. Marcus, my colleague and closest friend at work, sat in the cubicle next to mine. Around 3 a.m., he leaned over and asked if I was okay. He said I looked pale, like I had seen a ghost. I told him I was just tired. He accepted the lie. When 6 a.m. finally came, I did not go home. I could not face that apartment, the bed I shared with her, the photos of us on the walls. Instead, I drove to Marcus's place. I called him on the way and told him something had happened. He said he would make coffee. Sitting in his living room, I told him everything. The call, her voice, the hotel, the name Derek. Marcus listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said one word. Damn. That afternoon, Lauren texted me. She said her night shift had been exhausting, that there was a cardiac emergency and she barely saved the patient. She was coming home to rest. I decided to go home before her. I needed answers. Our apartment felt different when I walked in. The same furniture, the same pictures, the same smell of her perfume lingering in the air. But everything felt contaminated now, like the whole place was built on lies. I went to her dresser. In the back of her underwear drawer, hidden beneath folded clothes, I found a second phone. It was a cheap, prepaid device, the kind you buy with cash when you do not want to be traced. There was no password. She probably never expected anyone to find it. I opened the messages. There was one contact saved simply as D. 14 months of messages filled the screen. I scrolled through them, my stomach turning with each one. Love notes, plans to meet, inside jokes, complaints about me, about how I worked too much, about how she wished she could be with D openly. There were photos, too. I closed those quickly, some images you cannot unsee. 14 months. She had been cheating on me for 14 months. That meant when I proposed, when I got down on one knee with my grandmother's ring, and my heart full of hope she was already betraying me. I was not her fiancé, I was her safety net, her backup plan while she waited for someone else. I researched Derek. Through the messages and some basic searching, I learned his full name, Derek Holloway. He was a surgeon at St. Mary Hospital, the same hospital where Lauren worked. I found his profile on the hospital website. Distinguished career, board certified, respected in his field. I found his social media too. Pictures with his wife Patricia and their 2 daughters. Family vacations, birthday parties, holiday gatherings. A perfect family man. Except he was spending his nights in hotel rooms with my fiancée. The messages revealed more. Derek had been promising Lauren for over a year that he would leave his wife. Just a little longer, he would say, once the kids finish the school year, once we get past the holidays, once his wife is in a better place mentally. Always another excuse. And Lauren believed him. Or maybe she just wanted to believe him. Either way, she kept waiting, kept sneaking around, kept lying to me. I also discovered what happened that night at the hotel. Through the hospital gossip that Marcus heard from a friend who worked there, I learned that Derek had a secret addiction to prescription painkillers. Opioids. He had hidden it from everyone, including the hospital. That night, he had taken too much. He overdosed in that hotel room, and Lauren called 911 in a panic. The paramedics saved him. He was alive, recovering, and probably figuring out how to cover up what happened. Both of them lived their lives on lies. Lauren lied to me, Derek lied to his wife. And that night, their house of cards almost collapsed. Lauren came home around 5 that afternoon. I had hidden the second phone back in her drawer. I needed time to plan my next move. She walked through the door looking exhausted. Her eyes were red and puffy. She came to me and wrapped her arms around me. "Last night was awful," she said. "There was this cardiac patient. He almost died." I was shaking the whole time. I held her and said nothing. She had no idea that I knew. She did not know that I had heard her voice through my headset, that I was the one who walked her through CPR, that I knew the cardiac patient was her lover. I asked her to tell me about it. She spun a detailed lie about a middle-aged man admitted to the emergency room with heart failure. She described the chaos, the doctors rushing in, how she had to stay calm even though she was terrified. Every word was fiction. Every detail was invented. And she delivered it all without a single crack in her performance. That night we lay in bed together. She fell asleep within minutes, peaceful as a child. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. For 14 months I had slept next to a stranger. I had planned a future with someone who did not exist. The Lauren I loved was a character she played, and I had been the perfect audience. The next morning, I sat in my car outside our apartment building. The sun was rising, painting the sky orange and pink. Beautiful. Peaceful. Completely at odds with the storm inside me. I thought about confronting her immediately. Screaming. Throwing things. Demanding explanations. But that would give her power. That would let her manipulate, deflect, gaslight. I had seen enough to know that people who lie this well do not suddenly become honest when caught. They become better liars. No, I needed to be strategic. I needed to cut clean and leave her with nothing but the truth. It was time to stop being her backup plan. It was time to take control of my own story. I gave myself 2 days to plan. 2 days of acting normal around Lauren while preparing my exit. First, I made a list of everything that needed to happen. Cancel the wedding arrangements. Separate my finances. Find a new place to live. Gather evidence. Decide what to do about Derek's wife. I called my mother on that first day. Linda is not a woman who wastes time on self-pity. When I told her what happened, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do what you need to do, Christian, but do it smart. Do not let anger make your decisions." Marcus helped me find an apartment. A buddy of his had a vacant unit in his building. Small one-bedroom, nothing fancy, but it was available immediately. I signed the lease that afternoon. Then came the hard part, canceling the wedding. I called the venue first. The woman who answered remembered me. She had helped us pick the date, the menu, the flower arrangements. When I told her the wedding was off, she paused. "I am so sorry," she said. "What happened?" "Personal reasons," I told her. I did not elaborate. We lost the deposit, $5,000 gone. I did not care. Some things cost more than money. I called the caterer, the photographer, the band, the wedding planner. Each call was a small death, a piece of the future I had imagined crumbling away. But with each cancellation, I also felt something else. Relief. I was dismantling a lie, and there was freedom in that. Over the next 2 days, I quietly moved my belongings out of the apartment. Lauren worked day shifts, so I had time. I took my clothes, my books, my laptop, the few pieces of furniture that were mine before we moved in together. I left everything we had bought together. I wanted nothing that reminded me of her. The engagement ring sat in a small box on her nightstand. I had given it to her with so much hope. Now it felt like evidence of my own foolishness. I left it there. There was one more thing I needed to decide. Patricia Holloway, Derek's wife. Patricia deserved the truth. She was raising 2 children with a man who was lying to her every day. She was building a life on the same rotten foundation I had been standing on. I found her professional email through the law firm where she worked. She was a corporate attorney, successful in her own right. I spent an hour composing the message. I kept it brief and factual. I explained that I had recently discovered my fiancée was having an affair with her husband. I attached screenshots of the messages between Lauren and Derek, though I blurred out the explicit images. I wrote that I thought she deserved to know and that I was sorry to be the one telling her. I read it 3 times. Then I hit send. It was not revenge, it was just the truth delivered to someone who needed it. Friday evening came, time to end things. I went back to the apartment one final time. Lauren was home surprised to see me since I had told her I was working. She was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Something smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Normal, domestic. "I need to talk to you," I said. She turned off the stove and came to the living room. We sat on the couch, the same couch where we had watched movies together, where she had fallen asleep on my shoulder so many times. She looked nervous. "What is going on?" she asked. I started, simply, "That Saturday night. Where were you really?" Her face flickered with confusion. "What do you mean I was at work?" "I told you about the cardiac patient." I shook my head. "You were at the Marriott on Lexington, room 47. The color drained from her face. I continued. "You called 911 around 2 a.m. You were hysterical about your lover who stopped breathing. You screamed his name, Derek, begging him to wake up." She started trembling. "How do you know that? Because I was the one who answered your call. Lauren, I was the dispatcher on duty. I walked you through CPR. I sent the ambulance. I heard everything." The silence that followed was suffocating. She stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. Then the tears came. She started sobbing, reaching for my hands. "I am so sorry, Christian. It was a mistake. Derek, he pursued me. He said he was leaving his wife. I got caught up in it. It did not mean anything." I pulled my hands away. 14 months, Lauren. I read the messages. That is not a mistake. That is a choice. Every single day you chose to lie to me. She tried to explain. She blamed Derek for seducing her. She blamed the stress of her job. She blamed our relationship for not being exciting enough. She said she still loved me, that Derek was just a fantasy. I listened to all of it, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. When she finished, I stood up. I have already canceled the wedding. I moved out 2 days ago. My things are gone. This is the last time we will see each other. She grabbed my arm. Please, Christian, we can work through this. We can go to counseling. Please do not throw away 4 years. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. I did not throw anything away, Lauren. You did. You threw it away 14 months ago. I am just finally walking away from the wreckage. I removed her hand gently and walked to the door. Behind me, I heard her collapse onto the floor, sobbing. I did not turn around. I walked out of that apartment and closed the door behind me. The news about Derek came a few days later. Patricia had received my email. She confronted him. He confessed. She kicked him out of their house and filed for divorce. The hospital also started an investigation into his drug use. Multiple colleagues came forward with concerns they had kept quiet. Derek was placed on administrative leave, facing the possibility of losing his medical license. Lauren's reputation at the hospital suffered too. Word spread quickly in places like that. She became the nurse who slept with a married surgeon and almost let him die. Within a month, she had resigned and moved to another city. I did not celebrate any of this. I did not feel joy at their downfall. They made their choices, and those choices had consequences. That was all. Justice does not always come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from the simple power of truth being revealed. I stood in my new apartment, looking out the window at the city below. The place was small, half empty, quiet, but it was honest. Every corner of it was mine, untouched by lies. For the first time in 14 months, I could breathe. The first few weeks in my new apartment were harder than I expected. Heartbreak does not care about logic. It does not respect your decisions. I would wake up at 3 a.m. and reach across the bed expecting to find her there. I would pick up my phone to text her before remembering that I no longer could. Her absence was everywhere, even in a place she had never been. Some nights, I sat alone in the dark and wondered if I had made the right choice. Maybe I should have fought for us. Maybe I should have given her a chance to explain. Maybe love meant forgiving even the unforgivable. But then I would remember the call. Her voice screaming for Derek. The 14 months of messages. The elaborate lies delivered with perfect sincerity. I did not lose someone who loved me. I lost someone who was never really mine to begin with. Recovery came slowly in small pieces. Marcus dragged me to the gym 3 times a week. He said I needed to burn off the negative energy, and he was right. There is something clarifying about physical exhaustion. When your muscles are screaming, your mind gets quiet. My mother called every evening. She never pushed me to talk about Lauren. Instead, she told me about her garden, about the neighbor's new puppy, about the book she was reading. Normal things, grounding things. She reminded me that life continued even when it felt like it had stopped. I started walking every morning before work. Just 30 minutes around the neighborhood. I noticed things I had never paid attention to before. The old man who fed the pigeons in the park. The coffee shop owner who knew everyone's name. The way the light changed as the seasons shifted. I began cooking for myself. Simple meals, at first pasta and sandwiches. Then I got more adventurous. I bought a cookbook and tried new recipes on my days off. There was satisfaction in creating something with my own hands and nourishing myself without depending on anyone else. My apartment slowly became a home. I hung pictures on the walls. I bought a small plant for the windowsill and managed not to kill it. I arranged my books on a shelf and realized I had not read for pleasure in years. Lauren had always wanted to watch television. Now I could read for hours without interruption. Work continued. Every shift I answered calls and helped people through their worst moments. The job had not changed, but my perspective on it had. Each call was a reminder that I had purpose, that I could make a difference. My value did not depend on being loved by Lauren. It came from who I was and what I did. Months passed. I heard through Marcus that Lauren had moved to another state. She had taken a nursing job somewhere no one knew her history. A fresh start, I supposed. I hoped she would learn from what happened, though I doubted she would. Derek lost his medical license. The investigation revealed a pattern of prescription fraud that went back years. His career was over. His marriage was over. The man who had everything lost it all because he could not stop lying. I did not feel satisfaction at this news. I did not feel vindicated. I just felt sad, sad for the waste of it all. Sad for Patricia and her daughters. Sad for the patients who trusted Derek. Sad for the life I thought I was going to have. But sadness fades. That is the thing about emotions. They feel permanent in the moment, but nothing lasts forever. Not happiness, not grief, not even love. What I learned from all of this is simple but hard-won. Betrayal does not define your worth. It defines the character of the person who betrayed you. Lauren's choices said everything about who she was and nothing about who I am. You cannot control what other people do. You can only control how you respond. I could have responded with rage, with revenge, with bitterness that poisoned the rest of my life. Instead, I chose to walk away with my dignity intact. I chose to tell the truth and let the consequences unfold naturally. I chose to rebuild rather than destroy. Sometimes the greatest loss becomes the greatest liberation. I lost a fiancé, a wedding, a future I had planned for years. But I gained something more valuable. I gained clarity. I gained self-respect. I gained the knowledge that I could survive the worst and come out stronger. I still work as a 911 dispatcher. Every night I put on my headset and answer calls from strangers in crisis. I guide them through their fear with patience and calm. And sometimes when a particularly difficult call ends, I think about that night. The night everything changed. I remember that even the person who helps others sometimes needs saving too. And sometimes the person who saves you is yourself. If you are watching this and you are in a relationship where something feels wrong, do not ignore it like I did. Trust your instincts. Ask the hard questions. The truth might hurt, but living in deception hurts more. And if you have already discovered a betrayal, know this. You did not lose someone who loved you. You lost someone who was never capable of loving you the way you deserved. The person who is right for you is still out there waiting for you to be brave enough to let go of what was never real. That is my story. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered a painful truth that changed everything? How did you find the strength to move forward? Leave your story in the comments below. Let us support each other. If this video touched you in any way, please give it a like. It helps more than you know. And if you want to hear more stories about truth resilience and finding yourself after loss, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Sometimes, a story can give someone the courage they need to take their own first step. Thank you for being here. Whatever you're going through, remember that you are stronger than you think. The truth always comes out eventually, and when it does, you have the power to choose what happens next. Take care of yourself. I will see you in the next one.